order, and I'm going to ask Marion to do the presentation for the annual report. Over to you, Marion. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. Good morning, members. It gives me great pleasure to introduce and present to you the annual Chief Social Officer report for 2022-23. The role of Chief Social Work Officer is a privileged position. It's a position that allows, indeed expects, me to become involved in the social care and social work that's delivered across East Ayrshire. It takes me beyond my own portfolio and probably comfort zone too, as Head of Children's Healthcare and Justice Services. As Chief Social Work Officer, I have the professional responsibility for the social work and social care practice delivered in East Ayrshire and take this responsibility seriously. You will see within the report that I've taken a strengths-focused approach to highlight the range, scale and depth of the work that our social work and social care workforce deliver. There is mention of the pandemic within the report as its impact continues to be felt by the people in our communities and by those that deliver services for us. I think it's important to highlight that this will be the case for some time, probably many years, and perhaps even for a generation. On this, I was struck by Dame Sally Davis's recent evidence to the COVID inquiry, where she stated that the pandemic has damaged a generation of children, noting that it is awful watching them struggle. I have to say we've seen this with our children in East Ayrshire, and some of the data in the report points to this and increasing demand and complexity that we are seeing and working with. Whilst making mention of the pandemic, I have, however, sought to keep this to a minimum, as I think we all need to look forward, get our heads up and recover from how the ravages of the pandemic have impacted on us all. Peppered throughout the report are some personal stories and images that we have had permission to share. And I think these personal stories, I hope, serve to illustrate some of the positive outcomes that our social workers and social care workers achieve in a day and day out basis. Across all the services over the course of the year, I estimate that we have had hundreds of thousands of interactions with people, the majority of which have been overwhelmingly positive and achieve good outcomes for people. That's not to say we get it every right, and indeed you as members sometimes advocate for people in those circumstances. And the report will profile some of the complaints that we've received. It's important to note, though, that the majority of those are resolved positively and not upheld. As Chief Social Work Officer, I am proud of the services that we deliver. I hope you are too. Our social workers and social care workers encounter some of the most challenging, difficult, distressing and harrowing of circumstances. They face these situations with great professionalism, great compassion and a desire to do well for the individual. All the work that we do is founded on strong values, the philosophy of partnership, collaboration, and the individual is the expert in their own lives. What we do is help them understand what that means for them and what supports we can put in place. I expect our social workers and social care workers in all the situations that they find themselves, whether that's in a person's house talking and supporting with them, or in a court presenting a complex case to the sheriff, to be ambassadors for East Ayrshire. I expect them to behave in a manner that is respectful, honest and with integrity. And when challenging people, which we sometimes have to do, challenging in a way that's non-confrontational and informed by an understanding of trauma. Considering what they do, there is no doubt that the social work and social care workforce is our greatest asset. I make no apologies for repeating this each year I present this report. Just by way of information, the report is presented within the structure and guidelines set out by Scottish Government. There's naturally a heavy focus on statutory work. Social work and social care is delivered within a statutory framework, and there are certain situations that we must become involved with. However, I believe the report also sets out how we undertake this challenging work in a positive way. Whilst understanding that the statutory context is important, I believe it is of equal importance to highlight that social work and social care is so much more than this. Often where the magic happens is within the work that is focused on early intervention and prevention. We need and must do more of this. Just picking out a couple of points, look at the impact of Art Club. The impact that has had on our most vulnerable and care experienced children. Indeed, yesterday, this was recognised by one of our colleagues in public health. She told us that one of the poems on hospital food, that for those that saw the exhibition, you'll remember that poem. It was recently showcased at the Agora exhibition at the Dick Institute. It had such an impact on colleagues in NHS that they've taken that and are going to be using that in NHS Ayrshire and Arran. What a massive impact that has had. It's really powerful. I think the bigger achievement of Art Club, though, is harnessing the talent that was hidden within each of those young people and children. Finding and I suppose approaching that challenge is the challenge we have for all our children, especially those who are referred to social work services. We need to look beyond the behaviour, as this is often a symptom of trauma. We need to find the strength and talent within and harness it and develop it. We continue to have excellent performance around supporting people move from hospital to a homely setting. And that is only because of our wonderful community care officers, an investment in them and the care that they provide. Our balance of care is positive and is a testament to early intervention, prevention and recovery, with only very few people needing to live in care homes. I think we have to be pragmatic and look to the challenges to the future. We know that there is a risk as our budgets become tighter and more stretched, that the ability to deliver those early intervention prevention services will be compromised, as we must deliver on our statutory responsibilities. As I've said, it is early intervention and prevention that often supports recovery, mitigating and preventing the need for that statutory involvement. And you will all know about what ACES research tells us in the most powerful way. So just now, I've got a really short video. This is the point where my heart rate spikes, hoping that it works, just by magic from colleagues over there. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Just before I conclude, I just wanted to pick up on a couple of other points. So whilst I said the report's very much focused and profiled what our wonderful social workers and social care workers do, we don't do that in isolation. Indeed, it would be impossible to take forward much of what much of what we do without the collaboration and partnership of our colleagues in other services and third sector. You will see throughout the report the richness and value of multi-agency working and how we achieve positive outcomes together. This is an ongoing area of focus, and it is important that this continues to grow and develop into the future. So looking forward, the report highlights a number of key areas to focus on, and I will pick out a few. We know that East Ayrshire continues to have intolerably high drug-related death rates, and that requires serious attention. The recovery community has developed and matured over the last year, and we will continue to work and develop with this group in a way that allows us to support people in a different and more dignified way, with the ultimate goal of reducing drug deaths and drug use in East Ayrshire. The Mental Health Best Value Service Review will be concluded in the coming year. The findings of that will be implemented, which will mean a different and when we anticipate a better experience and service for people. Justice Social Work Services are similarly in the final stages of their Best Value Service Review, and the findings will be implemented in order to ensure services are structured to meet the changing needs and demands of that most vulnerable group. The voice of the person using services across all our services is crucial to the effective design and delivery. We seek to engage, hear, act and listen to those voices through a range of participation and engagement activities. As noted, in the report, real terms reductions in resources have challenged service delivery, and as such, how we manage our resources. As such, we need to manage our resources in a diligent manner that ensures best value for those who use services, and it challenges us to be incredibly creative as we go forward. I think it's also worth noting that the recruitment retention environment is challenging, and this will likely to continue as neighbouring authorities conclude a range of activity around regrading of professional social work management and social care roles. I turn to our workforce, which is our most valued asset, and we continue to support their training, development and opportunities for career progression, and listen to and implement what works in supporting their well-being. So in the coming year, we'll be developing 3 wellbeing spaces for the workforce in the Johnny Walkabon, North West Area Centre and Rossie House. I believe that social work and social care is the glue that binds much of what we do together. It's not visible, but without it, situations would start to fail and fall apart. I am a social worker, so I'm a bit biased in that regard, but it's what I believe. So that's me concluding in terms of the presentation of the report. I just turn you to the recommendations in the cover report, particularly the recommendation that notes an appreciation of the workforce. So I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Marion, and I think I can speak for us all. It's an absolute honour and a privilege to come out and see all the work that you and your guys and lasses are doing. Members will open it up. Deputy Leader.
Thanks, Provost. Thanks very much for that report. The videos are absolutely fantastic again, as usual. We know we have challenges that we face, but what I can say within East Ayrshire and within this department that we face them head on under the restraints that we work on. However, off the back of that, I will also pay tribute and be remiss if I know to the fantastic workforce that is out there, and whether that be that's only for the 9 to 5 stuff or the hour service that we don't see, the stuff that you talk about that's going on there. So absolutely fantastic to see that. It wouldn't be done without the partnership workings, and I'll mention again the East Ayrshire Violence Against Women partnership, how we tackle that and how through the recovery hub and the work that the guys are doing in there. We have the challenges around about this about mental health, and it's encouraged to have more emails in this morning with mental health related issues and the finite resources we have within that and externally. And we know that we have challenges trying to recruit more workforce as well. So we know that the challenges the wider public are facing out there. I'd just like, again, thank you, pass on my utmost regards to everyone in the team and the staff within the Health and Social Care Partnership.
Thanks, Jim. Councillor Mackay.
Thank you very much, Marion, and thank you for the presentation of this report for us again. You said that you expected that your staff to be respectful, to be honest, and to have integrity and be ambassadors for East Ayrshire. I always sincerely believe that teams need somebody to lead them, and need somebody to set the culture. And I think that you absolutely do that. And if that's what you expect from your teams, I think that that is because you are always respectful, you are always honest, and you always deal with us with real integrity. Now, as the child of a social worker, sometimes I did not like some of the things that I was told and some of the things that I was challenged with. But my goodness, I certainly look back now and know that those were actually things that were done and were always done for the very right reasons. So when sometimes we have to challenge you, please don't ever think that we don't understand, that we know exactly what is behind what you're saying to us. And we really do respect the work that you actually set for your staff and the way that you lead your team. I know how seriously you take this job, and we are lucky to have you in East Ayrshire. Thank you for that, Marion.
Yeah, absolutely. You always get embarrassed with these things, Marion. No, thank you. Any other questions, points? Councillor McFadden.
I'd also like to thank you for the presentation and all the work you do, and we'd echo Councillor Mackay's words as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think we all do. Thanks, Marion. Any other comments, questions, folks? Thanks very much, Marion. Folks, we're going on to item 9 now. And this is the Ayrshire Roads Alliance Service Plan, pages 139 to 180. And this is for 23-24. And it's over to Kevin. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Provost. Members, the purpose of this report is to present the Ayrshire Roads Alliance Service Plan for 23-24 and the performance report for 22-23. The first service plan for 2014-15 was approved by the Ayrshire Shared Service Ayrshire Roads Alliance Joint Committee on the 23rd of May 2014. As part of the service planning process, it was agreed that the service plan would be approved prior to submission to both East Ayrshire Council and South Ayrshire Council. At its meeting on the 19th of May 2023, the Ayrshire Shared Service Joint Committee approved the 2023-24 service plan. The service plan for 23-24 was approved by South Ayrshire Council at their Cabinet meeting on the 20th of June 2023, rather than Council at their request. The service plan provides detail on the Ayrshire Roads Alliance current operating position and sets out the vision, challenges, aims and objectives for the 23-24 financial year. The activities to be undertaken in support of these objectives comprise the following: the service 10-year review following the service redesign in 2021, service performance through the performance management framework, the risk register and report, which has established a method of effective management of risk to ensure service improvement through better service delivery, increased certainty and fewer surprises, more effective and efficient management of resources, reduced waste and better management at all levels through improved decision making, and through the benefits realisation strategy and plan, which sets out how benefits will be tracked and controlled across the fully integrated road service. In addition to revenue and capital funding, the Ayrshire Roads Alliance receives funding from other sources, including capital funding and grants from the Scottish Government, Strathclyde Partnership for Transport, and other organisations, including both external to the Council, e.g. Sustrans, and internal Council departments. The Ayrshire Roads Alliance has been in operation for just over 9 years and has achieved a significant amount in that time. The new integrated operating model provides an excellent platform for service delivery and will continue to facilitate a number of continuous improvement initiatives. A range of performance data is used by Ayrshire Roads Alliance to measure performance in accordance with statutory requirements to ensure coherent and regular reporting to stakeholders, including service planning actions, budgetary control measures, absence management, customer complaints and risk management. The Ayrshire Roads Alliance benchmarks its activities with the Association for Public Sector Excellence, APSE, and the Society of Chief Officers of Transportation in Scotland, SCOTS, to identify areas for improvement and cost reductions. In addition to the statutory indicators, the Ayrshire Roads Alliance has a number of other service performance targets, and the performance report for 22-23 is included in Appendix 2. Performance Management Framework reflects the service the service's desire to place the customer at the heart of service delivery and the need to provide continuous improvement in the most important issues, including the condition of the road network, response to repair streetlights, response to make good surface defects, other emergencies such as road traffic accidents, flooding, winter service, and the responses to correspondence received. Members are asked to consider the Ayrshire Roads Alliance Service Plan for 23-24 in Appendix 1, and the recommendations are contained in Appendix 2. Paragraph 2, sorry. Thank you, Provost.
Thanks, Kevin. Folks, any questions for Kevin on this? Please, if you could refrain respectfully for any specifics. It's the service plan, the policy that we're talking about. If there are any specifics, please contact the Roads Department separately. Any questions, folks? Leader.
Basically, it was just to thank Kevin for his report, continuing to make savings through the Roads Alliances, as we saw as one of the first shared services in the whole across the whole of Scotland, and seen that progress, which is recognised from other parts right across Scotland. Just some of the initiatives that we've taken here. We know it's always a tough job, with climate change and that it's got, but still got ambitious programmes in terms of road safety and in terms of making the climate that wee bit greener and cleaner locally. So just like to thank Kevin for all his hard work.
Thank you. Councillor Mackay.
Very much. Whilst echoing leaders' comments, I just have a couple of specific questions to ask, please, in relation to the service plan. It is in relation to page 173. A note under East Ayrshire Council strategic priorities. It's listed at number 9 that Ara will chair the delivery team for the Open Championship at Troon in 2024. So it's just to ask for an explanation as to why that is under East Ayrshire, and then just of a similar, it's perhaps just a typo. I know it's the South Ayrshire Strategic Priorities Plan, but it is on page 175 of our portfolio, and it is item number 11, and it says the final report complete for reporting in July 22. Thank you.
Through you, Provost, Ayrshire Roads Alliance, as the Roads Authority covering both networks, will chair the transportation working group for the Open next year, and that's obviously an error on my part. I've put it in the wrong section, and I apologise for that. And the other one is, through you, Provost, is a typo as well.
No, thanks for that, folks. And another one, if anybody's noticed that we actually control harbour in East Ayrshire. So we've got Girvan Harbour, and it comes under East Ayrshire. The employees there are employed by East Ayrshire. So there you go. Maybe get some lobster if we go down there.
Provost, it doesn't harm any harm to mention we're only 6 miles away from the Royal Troon in East Ayrshire, and there's plenty of good eateries and places the many people will be coming to Troon from the UK and abroad. Plenty of places of entertainment and that they can enjoy in Kilmarnock and surrounding areas.
I'm sure Kevin and the team will make that part of the bump that goes out to all these visitors. Councillor McGregor.
Thanks very much, Provost. If I may, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Kevin personally for taking the time to sit down with me and go through quite thoroughly the procedures for reporting and allocating jobs with the Ayrshire Roads Alliance. It's been absolutely invaluable with the number of queries I get myself in the Irvine Valley, and to be able to explain the processes, even though it doesn't get a solution straight away, has been a really positive thing for members of the public to be able to know and be referred to the website. And Kevin's obviously generously agreed to speak to the community councils as well, and just to say that's been a great help going forward, and thanks very much.
No, thank you. Thanks for that, Kevin. Councillor Richardson.
I was just going to say, just because the 152nd Open Championship was mentioned, and I'm a keen golfer. I know that Kevin will do a great job of providing a transport plan that will get all the spectators to and from Troon safely and quickly. So I've got every confidence he'll do that. I just hope that the Royal and Ancient keep the ticket prices for getting onto the course to a reasonable level, so that as many golfers and basically people that just want to go to the Open from East Ayrshire can actually get in, because in recent years the ticket prices have been going through the roof. So I hope that the Royal and Ancient take note that everybody's suffering from the cost of living and keep the prices down so that as many local people can get to the Open as possible.
Hopefully they'll take that into account. Agree. Councillor John McGee.
I just to thank Kevin for the report. Just a question regarding the workforce. And do we have vacancies that we can't manage to fill across Ayrshire? Getting the right skills, is that a factor for us? And are we doing something about it? Training we're in, sort of thing.
Do you, Provost? We do have an issue in recruitment, but that's not just Ayrshire Roads Alliance, that's across every roads authority in Scotland. We have difficulty in recruiting professional staff and operational staff. We have got a full programme of training in terms of modern apprentices, graduates, and we're also looking at training our own road workers, so bringing them in and put them through a whole training process. So we have got other measures in place, and we're working with Amanda Lowe's team in terms of that.
No, thank you. It might be an idea, Kevin, if you don't mind, future, maybe give a report to that to see how the young folk are getting trained and what your aspirations are for that. That'd be good for us to know. Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Kevin for his report and all the work he does and his team does, and it'd be very interesting to see how you get on with recruiting youngsters, and I'd like to see when that comes back to us. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks very much, folks. Are we okay? Councillor Cogley.
Yes, thank you. Kevin, I wonder if you could just tell us a little more, please, about the EV strategy. I can see a timescale of March 2025, but for those of us in the more rural communities, it's something that comes up time after time after time. Thank you.
Through you, Provost, we have now had several meetings with North Ayrshire Council, and I obviously represent the two other Ayrshires, and Scottish Futures Trust has been involved in that. What we're doing just now is pulling together the procurement documents to actually go out to procure a private sector partner to develop it. Obviously, there was a draft business case that was put together, and that will be subject to change. It's a living document, once we get a private sector partner on board. We need to do that to access the grant funding from Scottish Government.
So if I could come back on that. So does that mean that we effectively will subcontract the EV charging policy to a third party?
Through you, Provost, it's a concession contract where we would be in partnership with the private sector. The private sector would take on all our current machines. They would replace machines when they break down. They will maintain them, and they will obviously have a charging tariff as well. It's to take all the risk away from the three councils and transfer it onto the private sector. We will generate some form of income from where we have EV chargers sitting in our car parks. Then there will be a leasing element in terms of that. And this is the way that the Scottish Government wants us to go in terms of EV charging. It also takes the extensive electricity bill that I have away from the council. Thank you, Provost.
Yeah, thank you. If I could just come back on that. Does that not mean, though, that if you're in the more rural communities, there will, by virtue of there being fewer people, there will be fewer EV charging points, and that the focus will be the town centres?
Do you, Provost? No, it would be up to us as a contracting authority to ensure that there's an equal spread of EV chargers across our networks.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, very important point. Folks, are we okay? Happy with the recommendations? Thank you. We're moving on to item 10, which is the review of the Health and Social Care Integration Scheme. And Eddie's going to give us this report. Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks, Provost. This report comes for approval from Council to review the integration scheme between ourselves as a council and NHS Ayrshire and Arran, which is the legal document that establishes and delegates responsibilities to the Integration Joint Board, and also sets up the partnership delivery arrangement through the Health and Social Care Partnership. Members will recall that, we first of all, had this agreement in a shadow arrangement over the period 14-15, with the first meeting of East Ayrshire Integration Joint Board, which was the first in Scotland, on the 2nd of April 2015. It's required under the legislation that it's reviewed every 5 years, and that time is now up to do that. I think it's important that we do go back to the core about this as a partnership between East Ayrshire Council and NHS Ayrshire and Arran, and we need to remember that we are delegating our legal responsibilities as a council for social work and social care to this other body. In terms of that, it doesn't take away our legal responsibility for that, so the review is important in that respect. I think it's important that we align that with what's our stated, work towards in terms of community planning, in terms of caring for Ayrshire, and in our view, caring for East Ayrshire, and our ambition around the well-being of our communities. I think it's important, and particularly in times when we're looking at the National Care Service, to remember that the purpose of social care is not solely to support the NHS. Social care is a value in its own right, and that's when social care becomes aligned to our other functions around leisure, around housing, etc. And it's about how people live well in their local communities. And these are some of our priorities, get into an integration scheme to make sure they're reflected just as much as some of the statistics we see about hospital transfers, etc. So that will be some of the work that will go on over the forthcoming months. The timetable set out for the integration scheme is there in table 1, and I think that's an ambitious timetable. I do think we enter into this, with our partner NHS Ayrshire and Arran, and at the same time the other two councils will be doing it, maybe coming from slightly different places, where they see this as a model, how they can address some of the immediate pressures, and maybe we see it as a way of how we look at the strategic health and well-being of our communities, and we need to make sure we get that balance right. So that's the timetable that's set out, but as indicated, it is an ambitious timetable, and we'll come back, with any changes to that. So the recommendations are there at, section paragraph 2, sorry. It will be extensive consultation. That's what the legislation requires, and that's what we'll do over forthcoming months. It will be led, by Craig and the officers within, the Health and Social Care Partnership, but being very clear that it's the interests of the Council and NHS Ayrshire and Arran in setting up and delegating functions is what we're doing here. It's not about the IJB reviewing themselves. So happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Eddie. Members will open it out for any comments, questions. Leader?
Thanks. No, basically, I would support, everything Eddie's saying, in terms of where we are with social care and how that needs to be seen in its own right, particularly with some of the current legislation going through. I think, and how we react to that. But just in the paragraph 9, we're mentioning that close liaison with North and South Ayrshire Council is important. And I attended a meeting of the Health Board recently where it was proposed there needs to be more of a dialogue, and I think that's right. We need to, just exchange experiences right across the 3 Ayrshires, because evidently they're all quite different, and there was a suggestion of a seminar or something during the summer to where the 3 IJBs can get together and have a discussion. So I know that the Health Board itself is looking at that, and that's something I would support. I think I hope we'd support it as a council.
I think it's always helpful, to speak to other partners. There's some of the things that we have done as a council are fundamentally different from some of our other partners. We have chosen to have a predominantly in-house workforce in terms of our older people's social care, the same as we've done in our early years, remembering these are predominantly local women getting a decent wage and a decent pension. So that's where that big workforce and well-being actually crosses over into the economy. Not all places have taken these types of decisions. So sometimes you can deliver your services cheaper, but actually the impact is on local people and local communities. And so I think it's worth having the conversations, with people all the time. But I think it's also, it almost gets back to that thing about remembering the wider purpose of social care and the things within social care. That we were out at the, the prison, and actually we see the crossover once we get into the third sector and our relationships with the third sector, how important that is. Our relationship with Scottish Care and, the care homes, which are independent care homes. I think one of the huge changes in learning over the COVID period was reaching the stage of saying a real realisation. These are our old people that are in the care homes. These are local women that work within the care homes. They might not be our employees, but we have a responsibility for them. So there's no something over there. There's something really close to us. And I think they types of conversations, the value type conversations, is something we would want to take into the discussion about the integration scheme and into the discussion about any partnership, across, the wider Ayrshire.
Yeah, happy to hear that view. Councillor Mackay.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Chief Executive. It's always helpful because I think you have a real knack of being able to hit the nail on the head and being able to move us away from phrases that we bandy about. You did it yesterday at Cabinet in relation to vibrant communities, reminding us it's about community education, it's about community development as part of what vibrant communities actually deliver for us. You're doing exactly the same today in relation to IGIB, and I think that's really helpful for members overall, that we always get brought back to, yes, we may have shorthands that we use, but what are the actual services that we use? And in exactly the same way as you're describing yesterday, you're describing today how the work that we do and the way and manner and style that we choose to do it here in East Ayrshire joins up our other policies, joins up our thinking, and is clear evidence and demonstration of our commitment to community wealth building. Thank you.
No, thank you. Members, I looked at this the other day, and there's a whole diary here of stuff that's leading up to the end game. Can I ask Eddie, at what point does members get involved with the community partnership meetings in relation to having a view on this? Or would it benefit members at some point, maybe a council or a special council? At what point, if they wanted that, would they fit into this diary of having a view as members of East Ayrshire Council?
Thanks, Provost. Clearly, there'll be the formal, like come November, December meeting, but, we would want to obviously make sure that the paper that came there was fully informed by members. So I think members being involved in terms of any of the events out there in communities, because members then hear directly for communities, not just the officers, about what their views are around this. And again, around some of the, the issues around the thematic working groups. As I recall, when we set up the first integration scheme, with a number of seminars for members and gave members a number of opportunities. So some of the discussions we might want to discuss is things about, we agreed a scope. We've got the widest scope, of any local authority of what we're putting in the IGIB. Is that still where we are as a council? And there may be a number of other themes like that we want to run seminars and have the discussions about how we want to do this. So it's something that we'll certainly take back and maybe, get into more detail around that engagement plan about how we do it. And it's something that I know Marion, you and I can go away and do that. And it will involve, Ian Tuff and the team as well for the, that view of that as well. So we can do that, absolutely.
No, that's great. Thanks for that. And I would really appreciate some guidance about where members could go when the discussions are around East Ayrshire. And I would encourage everyone to go and have an input. Thanks for that. Folks, are we okay with this paper here? Very interesting. Please, everybody get involved in the next 6 months and try and drive that for all the best of intentions. Thank you. Here we go. We're back to this as usual. Item 11, the Boundaries Scotland second review of Scottish Parliament constituency boundaries, and it's a consultation on the initial proposals. David Mitchell.
Thanks, Provost. Through you. As you say, the Boundaries Scotland organisation have, under the Scotland Act 1998, carried out a further second review this time of the boundaries that exist for Scottish Parliament constituencies. Members are aware within East Ayrshire there are two, Carrick, Cumnock and Doon Valley, for which there is no proposed change, and the Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley constituency, for which there is a proposed change. In the past, when proposals have been put forward, there's normally been a bit of clarity and a bit of detail about exactly what the effective proposals are. But for whatever reason, this time around, basically we were furnished with the maps that you have at pages 188 and 189, which show the proposals in terms of how they would impact on Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley and the Cunningham South constituency adjacent to that. But there was no actual detail of the changes. So we wrote to them and they provided further clarification of the changes and the rationale for the changes. As members will be aware, having looked at the consultation document, they are quite clear. There are a number of factors that they will have regard to and should have regard to when considering existing boundaries and considering whether to put forward any proposals for change. The first of those is that the average electorate has been identified as being 59,902. So that's the target for each of the recognised constituencies for the Scottish Parliament. Obviously, not all constituencies are bang on that target, so part of the process is to try and get as close as possible to that target figure. The other factors are listed or noted to be, as well as being as close to that quota as possible, the existing local authority boundaries and wards, any special geographical circumstances, the maintenance of local ties, and any inconveniences caused by the alteration of the existing boundaries. As members will note, and clearly it's appropriate you form your own view in terms of the response from Boundaries Scotland when we made the initial ask of, can you give us a bit more detail? That's set out at page 190 and 191 in their response of 30th May. And it would be, I think, possible to read that the focus appears to have been on getting as close to the quota as possible. And there seems to be very little reference, that's a matter of fact, but very little reference in that response to any of the other criteria. And as local members, you'll have more local knowledge than I will, certainly in some cases, but you could actually perhaps form the view that none of the other criteria seem to have played any part in the formulation of proposals, and indeed seem to cut against the proposals. We did meet with group leaders, so it's not just my own distilled view here, but it's obviously a matter for council now. But from that general discussion, I think there was a prevailing view that none of these settlements that are proposed to move across, and sorry, I should have clarified at paragraph 6, it's set out that effectively the proposal is to take a large section of Ward 1, for which read most of Ward 1, which is the Alnwick ward, and that would include Stewart and Dunlop, Lugton and Kilmores, and put all of that into Cunningham South, which would then be run during the parliamentary election by North Ayrshire Council. So that would effectively, in terms of the polling districts, for those that, for that level of detail, would mean that E101, E102, E104, E105, E106, E107, E108, and part of E109 would move across, and we'd be left with a part of E109 and E110. From the discussion we had, generally speaking, if anything, the view was that if any of those settlements have a connection with Cunningham South, historical or otherwise, it's arguably closer to or more likely to be Kilmores than any of the others, which isn't advocating putting any in, but we have mentioned in the Holden response and made the observation that if it is purely about achieving the numbers, then actually leaving Kilmores and Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley would take both Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley and Cunningham South constituencies closer to the desired target of 59,902 than the current proposals. The current proposals basically move the swing. As you can see, it's best set out at page 190 in the Boundary Scotland response. The current proposals in the second paragraph there, the two current constituencies have a combined electorate of 117,040. Cunningham South contains 51,298, which is down 14% from the quota, and Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley is at 65,7, which is up 10% from that quota. The proposals rebalance the constituencies so that Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley contains 54,297, which is down 8.3% on the quota, and Cunningham South goes to 62,113, which is up plus 3.7%. So there's two issues. One, to the extent that they have tried to get to the quota, then actually we swing, or Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley swings from 65.7 up to 54 down. So it goes from plus 10% to minus 8.3%. So they've reduced the swing, albeit it's now in another direction, by a mere 1.7%. For Cunningham South, they have reduced it by near 10%, but they still leave them over. You'll see that there is no, and my eyes are getting bad, but there's nothing else in that letter that actually touches on any of the other considerations. In that regard, and I'll leave it to members to have any further discussion and consideration around the local authority tie and the special ties. But in terms of the inconvenience to the administration, I can confirm that colleagues at North Ayrshire Council have already, I think they had their meeting last week, and they've already similarly agreed a position of going back to the Boundaries Commission, not accepting this. Their main concern being over and above the issues we've identified, it would leave them running a Scottish Parliament election in a large part of what is East Ayrshire, so it's out with their boundaries. They'd be looking for our assistance to identify and secure arrangements to use buildings for polling places, and they would also need to recruit staff for a large geographical area for which they're not the local authority area. So the bottom line is, having had an informal discussion with group leaders, a response was put back because the Boundaries Scotland assure us that somewhere it's in the legislation that it's a 4-week consultation, so they maybe couldn't have given us more than 4 weeks, but they could maybe have started later than the 17th of May because the required timeline for response, I think, came before every scheduled council meeting in every chamber in Scotland for the June. But there you go. So the bottom line is we're not alone in having written and set out an initial response and flagged up that the council itself wouldn't be meeting until today. So we were asked to submit that and then submit confirmation of whether or not council supported that with or without any additions. So we're not tied to the letter, but equally, if members are happy with the support, then we have a general response drafted subject to any further points that council would wish to make today. So in summary, Provost and members, we have a proposal from Boundaries Scotland. It doesn't really seem to have regard to the established criteria other than a desire to get as close as possible to that average electorate figure. You can form your own view on how successful that would be. I would also simply draw your attention to the fact that if it is about slavish adherence to that figure and achieving proximity to that, then they would actually do better if they left Kilmore's, ironically, given the historical ties observation, if they left Kilmore's within Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley, it would take both constituencies nearer to the prize of the 59,902 average electorate figure, if that is the actual goal. So against that backdrop, the council have been asked today to consider the matter, Provost, and to consider the response that has been submitted and to consider whether to endorse it as is, and then we'll confirm the position of Boundaries Scotland, or whether, and I'm not necessarily inviting that we rewrite the letter by committee, but if there are any other matters in there that council would, or points that council would wish us to make, then obviously we would add that in before we submit confirmation of the final response. So against that backdrop, Provost, it's really open to members now to discuss matters.
Thanks, members. We'll open it out. Leader.
Thanks, Provost. I would absolutely support the line that's been given so far. And, you know, as David says, you know, very little reference has been to any other criteria bar numbers. But not even just that, just with the more I'm sitting looking and reflecting it, you you know, where's our most of our growth in East Ayrshire? It's in Alnwick ward, and it's to the north and to the west of Kilmarnock are growing quite considerably over the last wee while and continue to do so. And you know, and within Cunningham South, as we've noted, you know, Lawthorne and Pearston and Harbourside and all these places seem to be growing exponentially as well. So you're creating a new constituency with considerable growth, and they've not even considered it. Looks as if they paid very little heed to it. And actually, when you look at the maps themselves, from what I can see in terms of Kilmarnock, it's actually touching North Craigs, which we know is mushroom as well. So there's been absolutely no consideration of communities of interest from as long as I've remembered the parliamentary constituency. Alnwick has always been part of Kilmarnock and Loudon, and I think it should stay so, because that's where the communities of interest are. But I would maybe even emphasise them the fact, to add to what keep the response in similar lines as David's suggesting, but they've not even taken the growth factors into account, and they maybe want to consult certainly our local plan. But I think the plan for these areas in Cunningham South would reflect two communities that are growing extremely fast.
No, thank you. Councillor McFadden.
Well, basically, I agree completely with Councillor Reid. I mean, I think the whole idea is ill-conceived, ill thought out, pays no attention to local people, local ties, and is really a broad brushstroke over something that's totally inappropriate. I mean, as Councillor Reid says, we'd be actually lower in population than we are now. They'd be pushing beyond it. There's all the building that's going on round about Irvine and all the rest of it, and then if they take Stuart on board, all that increase, I mean, the disparity would actually get very quickly would get far worse than it is now. I mean, it's a really silly idea, and I'm surprised such a competent organisation puts this forward. And I hope our letter really is strongly worded, as along with North Ayrshire. So we just have to watch this space.
Yes, I understand the future, how it's going to swing. I get that. Councillor Richardson.
I'd just like to agree with both my colleagues, Councillor Reid and Councillor McFadden. I mean, from the Boundaries Commission's point of view, this whole idea that they can make every single Scottish parliamentary constituency roughly have the same number of constituents, pie in the sky stuff. That's no real world. It doesn't work like that in the real world. You know, populations are concentrated in different areas, etc. You're going to have constituencies that get more voters in than others. That's just real world stuff. This is just crazy. And I'm fully about the letter or the draft letter of the 15th of June that Eddie has sent back. Fully behind that. Absolutely 100%.
No, thank you. Councillor John McGee.
Aye, thanks, Provost. I fully support the holding letter. The only word that I thought was missing was preposterous. I think Councillor Reid made a really good point. If you look at Pearson, Lawthorne and all them, they hoosies are now up onto the main road, heading very quickly towards Cunningham Head. The growth in that area must be huge, and they don't seem to have taken that into account. If we go back a number of years now, when we were arguing over the half-hour train service for Kilmarnock to Glasgow, that wasn't only to do with Irvine, that was to do with communities that were in East Ayrshire, Comores, Stuarton, Dunlop, and over the years we've had lots of complaints for the folk in Stuarton about the continual house building there without changes to the infrastructure, making the infrastructure better, which we've identified in our current local plan that's going to come out. So I think this community should be in East Ayrshire, and this kind of gerrymandering to try and get the figures right, and then they can't even get the figures right, I think is just preposterous. Thank you.
No, thank you. Councillor Mackay.
Very much, Provost, and it's just to say again, the draft response is something that was agreed at sounding board and something that we are absolutely committed to be in line with the comments that have been made. We agree with everything that has been said.
Thank you. Councillor Cowan.
Thank you, Provost. Fully supportive of all the comments and the position that's been taken regarding these proposed changes. I just want to make a secondary comment. You started today's meeting with your Provost remarks and you were talking about the setting up the Stuart Museum. For me, these proposals impact detrimentally on something that is beyond our normal council services and house building, and it's moving into dismantling cultural and heritage links that are there.
No, thank you, folks. I think what Councillor Canning.
Yep, I've absolutely nothing to add. I mean, I think particularly my fellow ward members, because obviously they've got a lot more experience than Annex, so I have absolutely nothing to add and support everything we've said. Thanks.
No, thanks very much for that. I think we're all of the same mind. We're okay, so we're going to accept the recommendations in the paper. David?
Can I just check then, Provost, in terms of that discussion, if I just quickly draw members' attention at the top of page 193, where we raised the issue about the house building in a kind of roundabout way, we posed it as a question, which will probably never be answered. Have your proposals taken account of what this would mean for the future, the increased Cunningham South population with the proposed house building? If members are agreeable in order to reflect the discussion here, then I would propose just to strengthen that with further wording as follows. When account is taken of potential future developments in both constituencies, it seems highly likely that the revised Cunningham South constituency would soon be even more out of balance with the desired average electorate figure than either constituency is just now. In short, if the proposals are taken forward, we would anticipate it won't be too long before an even greater imbalance exists. If members are happy with that, we'll splice that in, answer our own question, which is never good practice, but what the hell. And we'll build that in there, and that would then be the council's response to be sent by Eddie. And I'm only half joking here, members, but there's always the option of building in a link to the video of the meeting if we want to invite them to soak up the strength of feeling. So I could also indirect their attention if they wanted to view council's discussion of the matter. We could send them a link to the broadcast, but I'm looking for a steer in that, whether you want me to do that or not.
No, thanks, David. A couple other inputs. Councillor Linton.
Thanks, Provost, and thanks for that, David. I think you're absolutely correct. It's unanimous, the feeling that this is not a brilliant idea. And I think you are extending and supporting, given the discussion today. But I think the leader made a very good point. He specifically identified the areas of growth in East Ayrshire are being hived off to add to the other side of the boundary, which is a key point. I mean, that will slow our growth down and it'll escalate theirs. But also, I think Elaine's point about the cultural links is worth including in your comments as well, because quite clearly they're strong. As a Kilmore's boy, I mean, I think Kilmarnock's always been my town. It's never really been urban, and I think it's important that link is maintained.
No, yep. Councillor Maitland.
It was just in regards to sending the video link. Yes, I would agree with that. I don't know how it works constitutionally, but I would agree with that. Also, would it be possible to put in our letter that this is unanimous unless there is anyone else in the chambers? Thank you.
No, well, yep, but you're right. We'll get to that at the end. Councillor Mackay.
I think unanimous is certainly something that I think should be underlined, but I think because we are a political organisation, I think it has to be unanimous, and that what we are presenting carries cross-party support, particularly given this issue, which is often used as a political football to have advantage from one party over another. The fact that we have cross-party support for this, to me, strengthens our argument that actually we are not looking for what is the political outcome of this. We are looking at what actually makes sense to the people in East Ayrshire and what also makes sense to the people in Cunningham South. And I think that's something that's really important, that we strengthen unanimous cross-party support for the proposals that we are presenting.
Yes, I agree. Councillor McFadden.
Yes, I think we should put the video link in, and yes, I echo what everything else is said. I truly believe it's a very good idea that you answer the question, David, because I'm not sure that any organisation that put forward such a preposterous, ludicrous policy in the first place would have been able to answer it properly. So yes, I think we should answer our own question so they get the gist of it.
No, I think it's very strong, folks. Proposal from David that we might include in our response that this portion of our meeting today. You never know, it might give a wee nudge. Are we okay with the recommendations as proposed? And we'll absolutely go emphasise the part about cross-party. Right, thanks very much, folks. And now we've got I'll pass over to Eddie, because we've got the nomination of an officer for the Governance and Finance Subcommittee of the very important 9cc group, pages 194 to 195. Eddie.
Thanks very much, Provost. Members will be aware that the 9cc group is a legally constituted group constituent of the community councils in the south of the authority, with the purpose of, the managing and fairly distributing the benefits funds from future one-farm developments in that area. Council previously had agreed our representation and attendance at the board for that. 9cc group have now come back as they develop as an organisation, and they have established their governance and finance subgroup, and in terms of supporting that as it gets established, have asked that we nominate our Chief Governance Officer to serve on that subgroup for the next 2 years. So the report simply seeks, agreement from Council that our Chief Governance Officer acts as a member of the Governance and Finance Subcommittee of the 9cc group for the next 2 years.
Members happy? Councillor McMahon.
Yeah, absolutely 100% supportive of that. That kind of marks up where the direction of travel that 9cc is going as far as governance and finance goes. I think that we've recently secured the services in the subgroup with ex-Director of Finance Alec McPhee. So it sends a really strong message to the public that they're sincere about the financial aspects of the organisation and the governance.
Members, okay, yep, I'm happy. Well done, David. Some more work. No, thanks for that. Right, item 13, a very important motion, and it was really, bless you, it's really well worded, and that it highlights it's only for the disposable vapes. So well done in the wording, because we know that the Health Board use some form of vapes for cessation of smoking cigarettes. So it's a good title there. And I'll over to Councillor McGee. I'll look for a seconder, then I'll ask David to give us a protocol on the legality side of it, and then we'll open up for discussion. Councillor McGee.
Hi, Provost, thanks for that. And Ellen Friel's going to be the seconder. Just to say thanks for letting us put this motion forward. It's a very straightforward motion. We're simply asking the East Ayrshire Council support the ban of production, import and sale of single-use disposable vapes. This is not an attack on vaping itself, which can be a successful method to aid in the cessation of smoking. It is clear there's some confusion and misleading information about vaping, which can make it difficult to work out what's true and not. Nicotine vaping is substantially less harmful than smoking. It's also one of the most effective tools for quitting smoking. You're roughly twice as likely to stop if you use a vape compared with other nicotine replacement products such as patches and gum. However, vaping is a way for adults to stop smoking, not something for non-smokers, especially children and young people, to try. And vaping is not recommended for non-smokers and young people because it is not completely harmless. The uptake of vaping amongst other young people is of particular concern, with multiple health professionals warning that instead of being used as a cessation tool to encourage existing smokers to give up the habit, disposable vapes have the potential to create a whole new generation hooked on nicotine. Ash research shows that last year e-cigarette use doubled among 11 to 17-year-olds, likely caused by the exponential growth of disposable e-cigarettes. Use prevalence of disposable e-cigarettes increased sevenfold between 2020 and 2021, rising from 7% to 52%, whilst the use of reusable and refillable e-cigarettes decreased. Some vapes contain enough toxic chemicals to be classified as hazardous waste, and when these are littered or improperly disposed of, can leach heavy metals including mercury, lead and bromines, battery acid and nicotine into the environment, impacting on Scotland's wildlife and indeed wider human health. It is estimated that the number of disposable vapes purchased in the UK is 168 million per year, and the expanding size of this market has clearly been driven by the promotion of these cheap, bright-coloured and sweet-flavoured products to younger people, with many of them who have never smoked now taking up vaping. I would also draw the members' attention to the 21st June briefing from the Trading Standards regarding tobacco and nicotine vapour products, which has kindly been inserted in the papers. In the UK, it is against the law to sell nicotine vaping products to under 18s or for adults to buy them on their behalf. Vaping exposes users to some toxins, and we do not yet know what the risks might be in the longer term. And this real concern for our young people should have us supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Ellen?
I'll second that, Provost. While John rightly expresses a concern over the health of our young people, there's also a growing concern for the environment. In a recent letter to the Scottish Government, Ash Scotland, Keep Scotland Beautiful and the Marine Conservation Society all signed up to it. And there were a number of issues raised. One was there's a recent research indicating that 2 vapes are disposed of every second. So that's 1.3 million of them every week. These contain the equivalent of 1,200 electric car batteries or 10 tonnes of lithium, which is being sent to landfill or waste incinerators each year. In the UK, vapes are classified as waste electric and electronic equipment, and so there are a number of obligations, including being listed on the public register for producer requirements, such as they require specialist recycling. In addition, the littering of these items contributes to the ongoing decline in local environmental quality across communities and neighbourhoods throughout Scotland, as detailed in a Keep Scotland Beautiful recent report that highlighted significant public concern with litter and littering behaviour, and it poses a very real threat to both public health and the quality of Scotland's local environment. So in seconding John's motion, I would add that some vapes contain nicotine, which is an addictive substance and hard to stop once you have started. It's more risky for young people because there's evidence to suggest the brain in adolescence is more sensitive to it. Ideally, if you are vaping to quit smoking, you should eventually aim to quit vaping as well. The healthiest option is not to smoke or vape. So if you don't smoke, don't start vaping. Thank you, Provost.
Thanks, folks. Before I open it up, I'm going to ask David for some clarification on some stuff, and then we'll open it up. David?
Yeah, through you, Provost. Trading Standards colleagues were aware actually that the motion that you've just had put before you was also being considered in a number of other councils, so they were actually in the process of producing that briefing note anyway, but I thought it'd be helpful to include the link, as Councillor McGee said, simply to assist all members and have it for ease of reference. As members will have seen from the briefing note, this is a reserved matter and Scottish Government are currently out to consultation on the specific issue of single-use vapes, so it is timely, and therefore what would be proposed if Council, and it feels like Council likely to support this, but assuming Council support, then what would be proposed is we would prepare a letter to go from the Chief Executive on behalf behalf of council, indicating that the council's looking to Scottish Government as the legislator to pass the necessary legislation that would look at banning the use of these by effectively prohibiting either their production, sale or importation. In terms of the single use, that's a complete ban on production or importation or sale of the single use vapes, recognising as Councillor McGee and Councillor Friel have, and as the Provost has, and I'm sure all other members have, that this is a subset of the wider range of options, and it's accepted from a health perspective that the rest of that does have a part to play in helping people cease smoking, but it seems to be the law of unintended consequences in terms of these single-use vapes actually causing the opposite effect and causing people to take up their consumption that weren't consuming before. So that's the kind of backdrop, but the bottom line is it's a devolved matter, sorry, not a reserved matter, and Scottish Government have the legislative competence, so if the Council wants to support the ban, then we would make that known to the legislator.
No, thanks for that, folks. Going to open it up. Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, I'd like to support Councillor McGee's motion as well, because I mean, I think the unknown harm that will be discovered in the future from these vapes is, you know, terrible. I mean, we don't know what's going to come of all the chemicals these children and adults are inhaling. And as far as, you know, the littering goes, I mean, I walk my dog twice a day and probably end up putting 5 expired vapes in my bin each week. The dog picks up. I mean, so they're prevalent all over the place. And the other day, when I was driving through Glasgow with this new low emission zone, and there was a bunch of kids, I don't think any of them are more than 10, and between them, they were putting out more smoke than an old diesel bus. You know, I mean, I know that it's funny, but it's absolute nonsense when you see a group of them all together. I mean, it's terrible, and all the bystanders are all inhaling it as they pass. So totally agree with you, John.
No, thanks for that. Deputy Provost.
Thank you, Provost. It's certainly great to see this motion come. It's helping to open up the conversation further that's needed for loads of different angles, which is great. And like yourself, John, I know people who have succeeded stopping smoking because of their use of vaping. So it's not about the wider issue, it's about these single-use disposable products. For the health side, Ellen, you spoke about the environmental side, and I think for me, we recently had a conversation, Willie Lennox and I, challenging and tackling behaviours of a throwaway culture is an absolute priority, not just for us in East Ayrshire, but as wider as Scotland and the UK and the world as well. We know that we know that disposable items take decades to break down, if at all, for so many. Do you know a single-use vape can take up to 1,000 years to disintegrate in landfill? Nay, littering of any type is an unacceptable antisocial behaviour that damages our communities and wider environment to the unprecedented degree. Wally and I were currently out Scoot the other week there. We call our round ward visits, been out Scoot, and we were visiting several residents, and one of our residents were a lady who goes out litter picking, a lovely wee lady, the one with the fluffy dog. We discussed several different things, but then only to find out that the lady goes out and litter picks. Then she goes out to her car and pulls out a carrier bag and opens it, and she was lifting single-use vapes. Now, these single-use vapes look like they came from a village, but actually what this lady was telling me is she was walking the verges of a rural area, rural roads, back roads as we would call them here, and she picked up a whole, what do you call them, like the bags for life, whatever, full of vapes within an hour. Think of all the vapes and having 1,000 years to break down every single one of them. It's just, it's mad. So I recently spoke as well to David McGill, who's chair of Young Persons Cabinet, about this issue as well. I was saying that there was a motion going to be coming by yourselves, and that was absolutely super. And a perspective that David had as well, which was really helpful, was that of young people, and he spoke about you know, how shame doesn't change people's behaviours. And I think that's the thing when looking at long term. You know, shame isn't a good and effective method of changing people's behaviour into the long term. It's changing narratives, providing education, employing community mindsets, and making change positively about the perpetrators of what we're discussing. And how can we put a positive light on people who disregard and discard single-use plastics and vaping for this one issue, I suppose. So it'd be good to see this issue open up as a discussion nationally as it progresses. But massive kudos to both John and Ellen for bringing this to council, because it's fabulous to see it come. Cheers.
Well, thank you. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Provost. Absolutely 100% supportive of the motion that's been brought forward. The serious concerns, and I know around about the wider vaping culture, there was talk this morning I heard on the radio around about being prescription only for the supply of vapes, but for single-use vapes, we know the blight that it has on our countryside and the impact that it's having on health. It concerns me around about the fake products as well and the manufacture of the vape fluid as well, that and you can go on YouTube and watch that, but again, like only chemicals you're using, if they're not mixed the right way, then the implications of that on health. So yeah, 100% supportive on it.
No, thank you very much. Councillor Richardson.
Thanks, Provost. Fully behind Councillor McGee and Councillor Fields' motion. It makes complete and utter sense. I'm also hearing again consensus is breaking in the day, because it seems to be cross-party support. Councillor McFadden made a good addition to this debate as well, and I fully support that we should ban these single-use vapes. However, one thing's already crossing my mind here. We're all Scots in this room. Hopefully, when it get, you know, the body that is going to have to pass an act in the Scottish Parliament to eventually ban single-use vapes is the Scottish Parliament. Now, here's the scenario. What happens if they don't ban single-use vapes down south? And what happens if Alistair Jack decides to come in again and basically sweep away that Scottish legislation? So this is just, you know, local government where there's a consensus here on an issue, an important issue, but all parties really start to think about protecting Scottish devolution, because this Single Market Act can just, everything we're saying here today, it can just be swept away if Westminster doesn't agree.
No, thanks for that. There's a whole host of things I'll touch on later on. Councillor Canning.
Nothing really much to say. I think obviously I support my fellow members again. I mean, I don't think that's news. Oops. But it seems to me a very good time just to say thank you to, and I think all our members know Andrew Thorley, to put on record, because he started something probably about 3 months ago now. He has a job which allows him to be available during the day. He picks litter every day for the last 3 months, and if you go up to Stuart, drive up to Stuart any time, you won't see any litter. So just thanks to Andrew Thorley. That was all I wanted to say, because I thought this was and he does pick up a lot of vapes.
Yeah, that's absolutely clear. I've done it as well, myself and Barry on Saturday. Councillor Boyd.
Thanks, Provost. I see it as a big problem as well. You walk down through the bus station, through Cloudsgate, Foregate Square, and it's pretty obvious during school term it's secondary pupils. You see them in uniform blatantly doing it. I hear stories smoking at schools. You're out doing a lot of pick, you see it in the ground and it's tangled up at drains, or maybe got leaves on them in the autumn. So it's going into our water courses, you know, ends up in the sea. So I don't like smoking. I would love to get rid of these things. Yep.
Thanks very much. Councillor Ingram.
Thanks very much. Yeah, on a visit to Loudon Academy recently, I was attending the Youth Action Team Roadshow. Our young folk were learning about the dangers of summer, as well as drawing attention to less desirable behaviours, antisocial behaviour, including vaping and littering. One S2 people voiced her concern that these products seem to be targeted at our young folk, with flavours to make them more attractive, unlike the alcohol pop craze of the 90s. These products should be helping people with cessation, not as a gateway into smoking by introducing a dependence on nicotine to our young folk. If we are looking to pass this motion, can we also pass on our concern to the legislator regarding the marketing of these products to our young folk?
Yeah, very important point. Councillor Watts online. Neil.
Thank you, Provost. I probably will be the only one, but nothing new there. I do share the concerns with the littering, and I do share concerns with the health implications. However, as a smoker myself, and not a smoker who is looking to give up and looking at the civil liberties of this, I personally, and I stress personally, cannot support this motion.
No, understand, absolutely. Is there anybody else? I've got a couple of points to make. I fully support the motion, and I will be. I'm just going to ask David for what the implications if, as an authority, we try to take steps to ban single-use vapes in our authority, if we could, if that's possible, and what would the implications be if there was a challenge to that attempt in terms of licensing, because there's a few businesses out there that will be affected, and what would the implications be? It would have to come from the Scottish Government, I'm surmising, to pass the legislation, and if there was a challenge, would it come to the licensing board or would it go to the Scottish Parliament, David?
As I think Councillor Friel touched on when she referred to these come under the same legislation, the WEEE legislation, which is the white electrical goods. So the points that have been made about the vapes, that is subject to the same statutory regime as your old washing machines and fridges in terms of how they should be disposed of because of all the chemicals that go into the refrigeration units, etc., etc. So that's the legislative regime. As the briefing paper from Trading Standards set out, anyone that wants to provide and deal with these products needs to be registered, but it's with Scottish Government. So we have no local licensing role or locus. If there's support for a ban, then the simplest thing would be a legislative ban to prohibit these products. If they're lawful, the ability of the council to start to dictate what lawful products can and can't be used in an authority area. And we talked about boundaries earlier, but they're not. We don't have customs at our borders. So the bottom line is we don't license them. I don't think a licensing regime is going to address the fundamental issues in terms of the health impacts and the proximity, the availability of these. I think an outright ban would be what would be the best fit. We can make the point that if Scottish Government for any, or the legislator for any reason weren't minded or couldn't see the way to promote a full ban, then it would be looking at giving powers, local authorities, individual licensing powers. But one decision maker delegating down to 32 isn't going to crack the problem. This is one where the Scottish Government are out to consultation. If every council in Scotland speaking to similar tune or coming to a similar view, with or without any conscientious objectors, then the bottom line is you would hope that if there are 32 local authority voices asking for a ban is what would be delivered on the single use. If a product's lawful, we have no locus to start to try and direct who, that goes back to Councillor Watt's civil liberties point. However, if a product's unlawful, civil liberties don't kick in. So I don't think that's the route to go, not to avoid making work for local authorities or anything else. We can implement a licensing regime, but the actual call here is to ban the products, and that would need primary legislation across the piece rather than individual councils going it alone.
No, thanks for that. You've cleared that up, David. Thank you. Councillor Mackay.
Very much. I really don't want to prolong the debate on this. Just to confirm that I'm already on record of having raised this issue, and just to confirm that we are fully supportive of the motion. Thank you.
Councillor McFadden.
Not that I want to preempt everything, but I'm supposing this motion will get support. And then on that basis, I'm asking, could we as a council then send a copy of, with his agreement, Councillor McGee's motion and the result, and some information round about it to every other council chief executive and council leader in Scotland? Would there be any harm in forwarding that to them?
Yeah, well, I think it's a very high level topic in most councils. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with contacting.
I'm just going. I think that a number of councils have already taken the step that we have taken. So it's up to council. I mean, obviously, if council agrees this today, then we would put a formal letter together again from the chief executive to the Scottish Government, setting out the council's ask of the legislator that as part of the consultation, they note our ask as that they consider a full ban on single-use vapes, and that's the position we put forward. As I said, given this has got quite a high level of awareness that is out there. It was our trading stands picked it up for themselves, etc. I just don't know the worth of each council then sharing with every other council what they've taken. I think that will become known quickly enough. We can put out some we can put it on the website. But if council wishes, and particularly that we formally also copy that letter to the other 31 chief executive. I'm just conscious there might be 31, 32 versions of that letter all going round as we share with each other that we're all doing the same thing. It's hard to see, subject to individuals, conscientious objectors, it's hard to see any council looking at this given the concerns that you see, not just the litter in the environment, the health concerns are prevalent and they're there and right across the country. So I'm not sure there's any great value in terms of that level of support, but there might be a smarter way that we can let folk know this decision and by putting out our own comms. And I don't know, it's obviously something that can be shared at COSLA. COSLA's on again tomorrow. I don't know if there's anything on the agenda that fits with this, but it's an option. But I would ask council to consider it carefully whether there's any value in it with respect.
Yep, it's okay, John.
I think for the cost of 31 stamps, it's such an important issue. I mean, I know it could be overkill, but it couldn't do any harm for the cost of 31 stamps.
No, I mean, that's absolutely fine, but I think it might be better with more weight if we put it round to all of our partners within Health and Social Care Partnership, the Community Partnership Board. It might be an idea to do that, but it's entirely up to members what they want to do. David?
I was just going to say we can even cut the 32 stamps because I'm sure there'll be a collective email address for the other chief execs, and therefore if council wanted, then we can share the letter from the chief exec here to Scottish Government and simply make others aware in a global circulation would probably be the best bet, and then they can take that or leave that as part of the wider comms strategy, because I'm quite sure given the health issues that our comms colleagues will be putting this out there for local consumption as well amongst partners.
Yeah, leader.
It's well, frequently I get stuff from other local authorities and motions that's through council. I've not had any in vapes, so I don't suppose there's any harm in East Ayrshire being the first.
No, that's fine, folks. I'm going to ask Councillor McGee to sum up if we're exhausted. Oh, Councillor Watts wants in. Yep, Neil.
Thank you, Provost. In the interest to ensure that I am recorded against, I would move an amendment to be against the motion.
Yeah. And I think the point would be that if no one's minded to second, you could then have your dissent recorded on the point you made, Councillor Watts. So the straight question to the other members is anyone minded to second Councillor Watts' amendment? You failed to obtain a second of Councillor Watts, so in accordance with standing orders, your dissent can be recorded.
Thank you.
No, thanks, Neil. I was going to sum up at the end with that point as well. Councillor John McGee.
Thanks, Provost. I think people, councillors are in the chambers have made some good points. Councillor Watts, he's entitled to his opinion as well, and he's put that forward. I think just to make clear, the biggest concern here is for the environment and I would say the young people, because it's clear that young people are now trying vaping and they might not even have tried smoking in the first place. I think that's going to be a real concern for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Ellen, you okay?
Provost, recently, when I was discussing this with someone, they said, when I was young and you wanted a fly fag, you went behind the bike sheds. Now you see young people walking the streets with puffs of this smoke around them. They're not even minded to hide it. And that's a concern.
Yeah, culture, unfortunately. We are where we are. Folks, we're okay. I think it's getting passed here with majority. It doesn't need to go to vote with the dissent of Councillor Watts. So I'll just, let's be clear what we're doing. Do you want the letter sent round for Eddie's department to go out to the chief executives of the other councils? Do you want it in that format and you're happy with the to support the motion? Yep. Thank you very much. Thanks, folks. Thanks for that. And on to the last item today. Doing okay. And that's a motion by Councillor Reid. Leader.
Thanks, Provost. I'll try and, I know it's been a long day, and I'll try and keep my point as brief as I can. And it was seconded by Councillor Jim McMahon as tabled. I'll just read out the motion very quickly. Now that the pandemic has been declared over by the World Health Organisation, East Ayrshire Council will seek to establish a permanent commemorative memorial to the victims of the recent COVID pandemic and recognise the value of the sacrifices of our workers and our citizens during this crisis. We would seek wider consultation with the general public on the details and bring back proposals back to the Council through the sounding board to agree appropriate action. Colleagues, members, the COVID-19 pandemic is probably the most difficult times many of us have ever experienced in our lifetimes. The pandemic impacted us all, but for many others, the social, economic and health harms were far greater. People lost loved ones and were not able to be with them at the end of their lives, or to comfort or to have the comfort of friends and family during the funeral restrictions. Sorry. To date, 503 deaths have been registered in East Ayrshire mentioning COVID. That's a huge statistic. We've heard so many stories, and probably everybody gets stories of people, friends and family. One of my best friends' mother died and had to choose what brothers and sisters attended the funeral. But grandsons couldn't, and grandchildren, the grandsons and granddaughters couldn't. We know so many other things, even just remember David Sneddon, one of the Kilmarnock football players and one of the most loved, that we named a stand in the street after, weren't even allowed to come out in the street and express our sympathy with the family to commemorate. But there must have been so much more. I know so many other people right across, everywhere. There isn't a family or an organisation that hasn't been untouched with this. 5,000 folk were advised to shield by the government during this process. I mean, we've got to really understand there was health. Many people suffered significantly. Some of them lost their lives due to the issues, the mental health issues that resulted from the social isolation. But members, during all this crisis, I was so pleased that the work of our staff, particularly our care staff, when everything was unknown about the nature of the virus and what equipment was necessary, they went to serve our people, their clients, some of the people that were most vulnerable people in their communities. And I think we need to really pay some kind of tribute to these people. So basically, I'm just asking you to support this. We'll build up something amongst, hopefully get everybody behind it. We're saying sounding board here, but all the members of the council will be involved with this whole process, and we can get some kind of fitting memorial, whether it's of some kind, and where it touches in terms of the entire East Ayrshire community, but something that's significant that people can go and pay respects and reflect, and not just the loss of life, but the sacrifices that others were prepared to make. Because for me, and I've got my bus pass now, I've never known anything like it in my lifetime. I'll move.
Thanks, Leader. Deputy Leader.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think the sentiments and emotions behind the leader's presentation there kind of sums it up for me. As far as the design of that memorial goes, I mean that's entirely, and that will be cross-party. And I think everybody within this and the wider East Ayrshire, I think, should be involved in the design of that memorial. In the paper, it talks about a memorial to the victims. We need to remember some of the victims are still with us. They've not all passed away. They're still victims living with long COVID and the mental health issues that went along with COVID. So I move in the paper as well. I've seconded that paper and hope everyone gets behind it.
Thanks very much, folks. Well, Councillor Douglas, then Councillor McFadden, then Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Provost. And I think that was a really emotional plea to Council to back that motion from the leader, and I certainly would be backing it. And I think Jim makes some very good points relative to long COVID and people who are living with the after effects. And we know people are still dying of COVID today. Provost, as you know, I lost my dad to COVID. I was with him at the end. It's probably one of the most harrowing experiences of my life. And in so many ways, I'm glad, this might sound odd, I'm glad that my dad had dementia, because the pandemic was a revelation to him every day. He would say to my stepmom, Maureen, we'll need to be careful. Have you seen this in the news? Every day it was new to him. And I'm glad in that way that he didn't really realise, because the social isolation that he experienced, had he been aware of it, I think could have been significantly worse for his mental health. So I've been through it. I know everybody in this room in some way has been touched by it. Kevin, just sit next to us, I know how much you went through yourself and your wife as well. The horrendous virus, and at the very beginning, how terrified we all were. We didn't know what was coming, and yet our public services, as ever, stepped up. Our public servants went out there and did a job when some of us were lucky enough to be in the house and kept safe. And I think I'll always remember going out when we could, helping the volunteers from Takeabout and New Farm. And it was a lunchtime this day, and this two wee boys aged about 6 and 3 came to the door and, thank you for feeding us. It would break your heart. So we must never forget what happened during the pandemic. Communities came together, and that was a great thing where we could. But we must never forget the sacrifices that everybody made, and those, and many of them are still living today, as Jim made that point. So I wholeheartedly support and hope that we can come together to pick an appropriate memorial for everybody in East Ayrshire. Thank you, Provost.
No, thank you. We're on to Councillor McFadden.
Yes, I'd like to say I think we wholly support this motion, and I think the true cost to humanity of this pandemic won't be known for years and years. But I think when we do find out what it is, it'll be really, really frightening. And on another note, I'd like to thank Councillor Reid for thinking to bring this motion forward, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Lovely words. Councillor Crawford.
Thank you very much, Provost. Very much in favour of a commemorative memorial. But I would ask the council, I hope they record it correctly and where it's going to go, put it in the archives, because we've lost the Miners' Memorial for Cumnock. It was put in the council's care, can't be found. So that's all.
No, that's an important point, Billy. I was going to ask how the members feel about, totally support the motion, about where it's going to go, and would it be prudent to have two, one in the Cumnock and Doon area and one here, or one that you would like that would go in an area that everybody could go to, might be the Memorial Garden at Old House, because that's a really fitting place to go. But if it is that way, we could go to that. Leader.
I take on board Councillor Crawford's point, but I think we need to go into the detail, and then bring something back that hopefully, with discussions, it's something that everybody can be happy with.
Yep. Just a thought. We're happy with that, folks. That we go cross party, and everybody will get an input into what they're thinking about. Now, again, please have a thought. Would we go out and maybe ask local artists to come up with something? What type of memorial are you thinking about? Would it go out to, not tender, but go out to think what people would think would be more fitting, or would you think we should do that? Councillor Cowan.
just on the back of your suggestion earlier, Chief Social Worker presentation, we heard about the art club. So if you were going to go down that route, then that might be a good starting point.
I would just note that the purpose of the motion here is actually to say we will go out and consult with the local communities as to the formal, memorial, etc. So actually what we're agreeing is just to go out with all these ideas and actually go out and consult with the local communities and bring that back. So that wider thing rather than anything.
No, that's clear. Folks, with Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Provost. Just on the basis of that, I think once we have established, and if there is to be a memorial, we remember our war dead and those who have given service to their country over the decades, that perhaps, and I'm sure something will end up being established nationally, but again, East Ayrshire can be a trailblazer too, that we maybe look at an appropriate annual memorial event after this memorial is put in place. Thanks.
Oh no, that's a good idea. I would support that. Folks, we're happy with the proposal. I'll ask the leader to come back in to sum up.
Thanks. No, I appreciate all the cross-party the support across the board, and just thank all the members. Some great ideas out there, and I think that's something that and actually, as Barry suggests, we can be a trailblazer and just set an example for our local authorities and our communities right across Scotland, and look forward to working with others just to draft some proposals that we can bring back here so that everybody can have a hand on it. So thank you.
No, thanks, folks. I think by acclaim, we're accepting these proposals and we look forward to what's coming in the future. Folks, thanks very much. That's us. We're going into recess now. I hope everyone has a wonderful time. Please stay safe and chat the old buddy's door next door. Make sure they're okay through the summer. And if you're going out, factor duffel coat. And just enjoy yourself and have a great summer. Thank you.